We're going to look at the agenda here, right? So my name is Don Ginsel. I'll be your opening host for today on behalf of Holland FinTech. Then we're going to hear from Takeshi Kito from the FinTech Association of Japan. Then we're going to get a brief introduction from our partner of the Dutch Embassy, John Mike Jager, who've been collaborating with to get this event going. I'll give a brief update then about the Dutch fintech ecosystem to tell you a bit more about what's going on in the Dutch market. Then we'll hear from Maarten Rosenberg from MUFG. He's a Dutchman working for a Japanese bank, and he can share some experiences about the crossover of cultures and collaborating in the financial field. Then we're going to have a look more at the Japanese fintech ecosystem. We'll hear from Takeshi Kito again about the major developments there. Then we'll hear from Adyen, which is one of the Dutch fintech unicorns, which also has a branch in Japan, where Maarten Wessels will tell us a bit about how he finds it to work there. And then we've got some pitches from Japanese startups. Colis, Cybersecurity, Infurion, and Monitor will present. And then we have two Dutch companies also presenting, Olin and Friss, two relatively scale-ups in the Dutch market that will give a nice view on data and capital markets, as well as on the insurance side, what's because this won't be the final thing that we'll organize them together. So we're very much looking forward to see this as one of the first steps of a longer journey of collaboration together. Well, to take it further, first, yes, to go to the opening statements. Well, you've already known me now for a couple of minutes. Very briefly, my background is I'm the founder of Holland FinTech. In 2014, started out Holland FinTech as a large network and a place where all the different stakeholders that are active in financial innovation could come together to exchange ideas and collaborate. And we're still doing that today with over 300 companies in our member base. I'm very much looking forward to host this with you, as well as to provide international opportunities like collaboration with companies in Japan. I've said enough, I think. I would really like to hand over the floor to Takeshi Kito. He's from the FinTech Association of Japan, and he can tell you a bit more about their ideas. We're very much looking forward to working with you, Takeshi.
Thank you, Don. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this joint webinar by Dutch Embassy and Holland FinTech and the FinTech Association of Japan. My name is Takeshi Kito, Vice Chairman of FinTech Association of Japan. And I'm really excited to host this webinar after signing a MOU with Holland FinTech early this year. And let me introduce John Mike. He is the Trade Policy Officer of the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. And he will introduce the background of our partnership.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you, Takeshi-san. And dear participants, I would also like to welcome you from the Dutch Embassy in Tokyo to today's webinar, Digital FinTech Exchange, the Netherlands and Japan. Last February, there was a Dutch online economic mission to Japan under the guidance of the then State Secretary, Mrs. Mona Keizer, on digital economy. And one of the main topics of that mission was FinTech. And during that mission, a memorandum of understanding was signed between the FinTech Association of Japan and Holland FinTech, with Mrs. Keizer and our ambassador present. Here on the screen you will also see some pictures from that joyful moment. And the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding was the start of a hopefully fruitful cooperation between the FinTech societies in both countries. And today we organize together with the FinTech Association of Japan and Holland FinTech the first joint activity on FinTech. And one of the most important goals of the Memorandum of Understanding is facilitating contacts for startups in both countries. And I'm glad that we could make a start with that today. I'm looking forward to hear more about the Dutch and Japanese FinTech ecosystems and get inspired by Dutch and Japanese startups. Both Japan and the Netherlands are facing the same societal issues like fighting climate change, aging society, and digitalization. And actually, FinTech plays an important role to become a more digital and resilient society. And to realize these changes, it is important to exchange knowledge so that we can learn from one another. But this cannot be reached without the involvement of startups, who come up with creative ideas to tackle complicated issues like how do we make sure that all the data of our payments is secured? At last, I expect that today's session is a starting point, and in the near future we will organize more events in cooperation with FinTech Association of Japan and Holland FinTech to further strengthen the FinTech cooperation between the Netherlands and Japan. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. And Doug, over to you. And could you introduce your ecosystem and your association work?
I would love to. Yes, I would love to. I couldn't unmute myself. So the studio there is in control. I hope everything goes well. Thank you very much to Takeshi and John Mike. I think it was great to be able to sign the memorandum of understanding earlier in the year. And I really hope that it's the base for a fruitful collaboration. And even though our distance between the countries might physically be great, I think it's really great that we can actually explore narrowing the gap from a knowledge and insight perspective, and making connections that might turn up to be very fruitful, I think, in the coming future. Let me tell you a little bit about the FinTech market in the Netherlands in a second. Yes, so I think my slides will be up right now. So I'll take you through in a brief overview, see it more like a helicopter flight throughout the developments in the Dutch market, and hopefully give you a bit of an idea of everything that's going on. This text has a lot of slides, but I think in general, what's most important to know is that the fight against the water has made the Netherlands quite a collaborative country. So because actually fighting sea and river floods is something you cannot do on your own. And therefore, I think there's a really strong collaborative nature, which actually also led to some collaborative financial experiments in the early days. For example, that led, for example, to the first joint stock company and the first stock exchange in the 17th century. That was called the Golden Age. So I think from that perspective, you see that we can actually still today see that there's a really strong collaborative nature in the Dutch financial ecosystem. And I think that's quite favorable, especially if you look at that FinTech actually means that there's a really strong outsourcing wave and renewed collaboration going on in the financial industry. So that's a favorable ecosystem, I would say, for further development in financial innovation. So in a European it's good, of course, to see Netherlands in a European context, as it's a relatively small country with 17 million people, but it gives you actually access to a 450 million market, where if you count all the EU countries together. For the rest, you see that traditionally we have three axes that are especially strong developed, which is on one, the Anglo-Saxon one. The Netherlands have a really strong relationship to trade with the UK and the US. And you see that there's a really strong German influence, our biggest neighbor, which also has a relatively low, let's say, relatively resemblance with regard to what's with regard to culture and language. It's not by anything that actually the word Dutch actually means German, kind of funny thing. And we have a strong Nordic connection with the Scandinavia. We're highly digital, and you see that generally that's also why a lot of companies in digital companies take the Netherlands as a testing ground to explore rollout throughout the rest of Europe. And you actually see that as well in the use of digital finance. So we have a relatively low number of cash payments, under 40% these days, and digital solutions are highly adopted across the board. A very strong international financial ecosystem. Here are the big players in banking, where, for example, you will find MUFG. We'll hear from later from Maarten Rosenberg. But for example, we have in any case 4 large domestic players that everyone should know about if they're interested in the Dutch market, which are ABN AMRO, the Volksbank, ING, and Rabobank, who play an important role in shaping the landscape there. The same goes for asset management and insurance, where there's also a relatively international ecosystem based in the Netherlands. But some of the local players you should know are Robeco, APG, and then investment partners MN and Acmea. Then we move over to the FinTech side, where we see that actually from 2014 up until now, the ecosystem has evolved very strongly, which you can see in the Dutch FinTech map that we've been producing over the years. And if we actually move to where we currently stand, you'll see that it's a really vast map with loads of companies. This one counts up to 1,200 organizations. And then you see that we're actually getting to a challenge to present it in an overseeable way where you're actually still able to read who is who. So we're still actually on our own innovation path there. But you see in any case that the landscape is very full, very active, both from a licensed party perspective as well as from the supporting ecosystem. And we're really keen to keep on bringing those together. Some household names you should definitely know about when you look into what's going on in the Dutch market. We have three well-known unicorns, which is Adyen was the first one actually who stopped becoming a unicorn when they actually got listed. But still, Molly and Bunk are in private hands and unicorns that are well known. Adyen and Molly in payments, and of course we'll hear a bit more from Adyen later. For Maarten, Molly's in payments as well, and Bunk is a neobank that's doing quite well and recently raised a very strong Series A round. Then two other listed companies are Flow Traders and CM.com in automated trading as well as in payments. And other well-known names are Bux, Savinio, and Tiki. Bux is a neo broker. Savinio is a bookkeeping automation platform, and Tiki is a really well-known innovation by one of the banks to actually do payment requests. This gives, in any case, some names in the landscape that I think that you are relevant to know once you actually want to do business here. And of course, there's always the regulatory side. So key to know that we have the Ministry of Finance, who's very active on FinTech, the Privacy Authority, the Dutch Central Bank, the Financial Markets Authority, and the Competition Authority that all are very active to monitor and play a role in the financial services field. They're very tough and they have a very strong reputation from that perspective. But once you get a license there, Europe is good to go, basically. So that's it's a favorable proposition, which is being appreciated by many companies. And it gives us, I think, quite a well position to attract FinTech companies in Europe. I'd like to leave it at that and hand it over back to Maarten Rosenberg, actually. Here you actually see the Amsterdam FinTech Week, one of our major events. So if you want to connect to the Dutch FinTech ecosystem and actually pay a visit, we recommend that you keep track of the agenda because we think that this might be actually be a good moment to concentrate all your meetings in the Netherlands to meet everyone in FinTech. But to wrap it up, I would love to really open the floor to Maarten Rosenberg from MUFG. I'll stop sharing my slides so we can have a look at Maarten. Good morning, Maarten.
Morning. Konnichiwa, watashi wa. Yep. Konnichiwa, watashi wa Maarten Rosenberg. I am the Chief Risk Officer for MUFG Bank in Europe, and welcome all. I've been 30 years in banking, mostly in investment banking and corporate banking, spent my time both in front offices and in risk management functions. I've been with MUFG for 5 years now, and as Don says, I will also touch a little bit on the cultural differences and let's say the cultural strength of combining the Japanese and the Dutch cultures and economies. So MUFG Bank Europe in itself is a subsidiary holding the EU banking license with a head office located in Amsterdam, and we are covering the 29 EU countries. We form part of MUFG's EMEA overseas region. MUFG has basically 5 regions: Japan as a home market, Asia Pacific, the US, and EMEA. We have around 800 staff working from 12 locations, but mostly working from home nowadays, as we're all confronted with the same global pandemic. And to Don's point, the Netherlands is indeed quite high on digitalization and connectivity, but it is a challenge from time to time to also make that work from a home type of environment. So I think there's still innovation to be had. We service Japanese and what we call global clients, mostly corporates, with a very broad product suite. However, our basic payment and trade services are mostly directed towards our Japanese clients. Why is that? Because the Japanese corporate clients do appreciate MUFG as one of their main prime banks, where they want to basically fulfill their full product suite. But if you go into the overseas regions, like for instance, in our case, Europe, many of the European clients will not necessarily choose MUFG as their payments platform, for example. So from origin, we are there where the Japanese corporates have established their footprint in Europe. We followed our client base on their global expansion and landed in Europe some 60 years ago. MUFG has 350 years of history, no less, and ranks currently number 5 in the world. As you can imagine, we ranked number 5 after the 3 Chinese megabanks. They've been really obviously expanding their footprint quite aggressively in the last 10 years. Japan actually is still the 3rd largest economy in the world. So you can imagine that indeed the business generated by our Japanese corporate clients is still quite extensive and quite vast across the globe. If we would zoom into now MUFG Bank Europe, despite having around 35 nationalities working for MUFG Bank in Europe and about 5% of our staff being truly Japanese, we would still qualify ourselves as a Japanese bank with a European footprint, as opposed to a European bank with a Japanese shareholder. I've been working mostly for Dutch banks prior to coming to MUFG. And I think what I've really recognized and appreciated from a Japanese cultural and business type of perspective, that there's a true medium to longer term planning, which might on one hand sound a bit conflicting with the fast and lean and mean environment of, for instance, the FinTech world. But on the other hand, what we do strategically and how we go about our businesses is very well thought through and highly analyzed before we actually enter into new markets. The average presentation pack I've been confronted with here in MUFG, or the average report, is probably 3 or 4 times the size I saw in the European banks or I saw in the Dutch banks. It has a high level of detail, but also a high level of analysis with running all types of scenarios of what potentially could go wrong, but also where the opportunities are. And for me, that's a good example of going around our businesses quite conscious and well prepared. And then once we've chosen a certain business direction, we're there to stay and we're there for the longer haul. In one of my first interactions with Japanese clients, they actually showed me a 100-year business plan, which for me was quite mind-boggling. How can you define a 100-year business plan? But their argument to me was, but actually, we believe in the strength of our product. We know and understand how to innovate our product. So why not plan for 100 years ahead? I still wouldn't do that myself, but I think it was a good example of, I would say, how I've at least recognized, let's say, the Japanese business mindset to focus on growing economies and supporting society. If I zoom into our own businesses, for our European and our global clients, we team up a lot with the European banks. So basically, we're often part of a syndicate and indeed having joint relationships with the European banks. If I would look at our Japanese corporate customers, how we service them, those still may mostly bank exclusively with other Japanese banks. So there we team up with some of the other Japanese mega banks. So there is still quite a clear distinction between, on one hand, Japanese corporates having their main businesses conducted with Japanese bank, while the global corporates clearly choose a much broader perspective. And here in Europe, we work a lot with the European banks on servicing those clients. We're there for the long haul, as I said before. So we build very long-term relationships with the customers. We promote real economic growth and contribute to orderly capital markets and serve society. And the welfare of our customers, but especially also our employees, is always on top of mind. We have a very conservative risk profile, I would say, and a sensible appetite for risk, which means we do not follow each and every trend from a business type of perspective. But as I said, being a large global player and a bank as we are, we obviously also need to work on further innovation. So MUFG provides assistance for launch of new businesses in FinTech through the MUFG Digital Accelerator Program, having established partnerships with various companies in Silicon Valley. And we also have representatives of MUFG Bank working from Silicon Valley. However, to be frank to this morning's forum, Here in Europe, from our business model type of perspective, we've not seen much outcome and output of that just yet. But we do appreciate that MUFG is obviously dedicated to also make sure that they can further innovate their financial services platform. Coming back to Europe, I would say the main challenges, and Don already partially touched upon that as well, are clearly around the current low interest rate environment and the economic slowdown, although Japan as a society has multiple years of experience with a low interest rate environment. So that's where Europe can learn from as well. But we also see ever increasing and tighter regulations on, for instance, anti-money laundering, data management and data protection, but also indeed on environmental, social and governance type of issues. And although I think we also appreciate having an EU license sitting in the Netherlands, that the cooperation, for instance, with the Dutch regulators is quite strong, and again, very constructive and collaborative. And from my own experience, I can tell you that the Dutch regulators are willing to communicate in English, for example, where that would be hard to find in, for instance, Italy, France, or Germany. So to that extent, I would say, and indeed confirm, that Amsterdam is a good place to establish your European footprint, also from a banking and fintech type of perspective. Still, the ECB is becoming stronger and stronger in terms of their oversight and working towards a more single supervisory mechanism. And as you saw on Don's slide, he, for instance, referred to Bunk Bank as one of the fintech companies in the Netherlands as well. But they are now growing and growing and also moving into the more traditional banking side of things, which then increases regulations as well. So I believe that's a continuous challenge. But another challenge we're faced with as well is actually the relatively high turnover in our young and talented staff, who seem to be less appreciative of a long-term career with a global company, or maybe even a dinosaur from time to time in their eyes. So let me pause there, but I think that's also a challenge I wanted to leave you with. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maarten. Thank you for sharing. I think it's really, really great to hear your perspective. And indeed, I think most organizations in the Netherlands would not think about creating a 100-year plan for their organization. Already 4 years is often too much. But this is, I think, actually also one of the points of inspiration, because actually, I think what you do see that if you look at the ESG discussions that we're having at the moment in Europe, might actually lead to a much more long-term perspective on your impact on the world and your goals. So I think that's actually really nice to exchange ideas as well at that level. And to your last point, I think I do recognize definitely that there's a bit of a shift between sort of the cool young companies with sort of the more dinosaur perceives traditional players. But at the same time, you see that in the end, they're working on the same ecosystem from a different perspective. And I think that's where you'll see that convergence, I think, is something that I see as well with more maturing companies, where there might be different ways of working, while at the same time, I think actually the collaboration is where a large amount of power lies. I'm just curious about what you see at that level. So are you from MUFG's perspective also looking at collaboration with upcoming technology players, for example, to fit into your operations, or potentially to work with their client propositions?
Yeah, so as I said, that initiative is certainly being conducted out of Japan, with having chosen as MUFG as a brand to put the main hub in the US, actually in Silicon Valley, to understand where the more, let's say, global developments are. Putting that into the business model of MUFG Bank Europe is a bit far away, because we mostly serve professional counterparts and large corporate clients. But you definitely do see a lot of development in the Japanese home market, and I would say in Asia Pacific, so where MUFG is present in countries like China and Vietnam and so forth.
Okay, yeah, I think that's really nice and really interesting. And so how do you find it from a cultural perspective? Is there anything that nice that you could share perhaps about something that you perhaps had to get used to when you first started working at MUFG, also on a personal level, perhaps on how things are arranged that were different than you were expecting them?
So I think what I've said before, I recognize a lot that there's indeed a lot of respect and a lot of care for our employees as well. So it's more of a family almost than a professional environment. So you can really build long-term relationships also from a personal perspective. Secondly, there's clearly always a ask for the collective. In our handbook, in our employee handbook, there's an instruction which literally states if you pick up the phone, you start with the company name and you never start with your own name, because it's not about the individual, it's about the company and it's about the strength of the collective. And you really see that in the professional relationships as well. And maybe last but not least, any type of meeting you go into, please be careful that you do not necessarily confront people with something completely new and out of the box type of idea. That needs to be well prepared before you actually get to a proper decision making, because people want to understand before they actually take a clear decision. So consensus is also an important element of our culture, I would say.
Yeah. Well, really nice. Thank you for sharing, Marta. I think that's really interesting, and I think there's indeed quite some difference there in the way that companies generally from the Netherlands are approaching this. And I do really like also actually the family approach as well, where the company is much more of a collective that just also cares for that community rather than just a business with a relatively flexible source of employees.
Yep.
So I think that's interesting to actually find a balance there also between these two cultures. I'd like to thank you for now, Marta. I think it's been great that you've been sharing your view. I hope you can stay with us for the rest of the conversations.
Thank you for having me, and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marta. And then I think we should move back to the studio in Japan, where we can hear from Takeshi what's going on in the Japanese fintech ecosystem.
Thank you, Don and Martin. Very informative presentation and discussion. So in the coming 10 minutes, I would like to introduce fintech ecosystem in Japan and our association as well. So, to show my slide. Okay. So next, please. Next, okay. So first slide is macro perspective of Japanese economy, and actually Japanese economy is very huge, and the Tokyo is still ranked at the top of these league tables by population by city and by GDP by city, and also Tokyo has 38 companies, which is ranked Fortune Global 50 companies. Next. And narrowing down to fintech market in Japan, and this chart shows Japanese fintech market size, and it has been growing and expected to grow from 2017 to 2022. And the word fintech was emerged around 2014. I think this is quite similar to what happened in the European ecosystem. And the growth rate, CAGR, from 2017 to 2022 is expected to be 51, so it's really rapid growth. And according to EY report, this growth rate is supposed to surpass the rate of APAC, US, and EU from 2014 to 2018. And this slide shows VC investments by categories. And in 2019, FinTech was ranked at fourth place. And last year, this is ranked up to third place. And as you may of course, back to the, Japan was severely hit by COVID-19 last year, but FinTech investment itself was increased from 511 in 2019 to 526 in 2020. And seeing from different angles, this is amount of investment by investor types. And upper bar stands for the investment in 2019, and the lower bar stands for investment in 2020. And this investment from international investors were increased last year. So this means international investors have more presence in Japan. And one of the Nikkei Asia article says that Sequoia Capital, which is one of the biggest top-tier business capital based in the States, seeking to the opportunities, investment opportunities in Japan, and sweep to the Japanese market. And these are some key topics and key trends in Japanese ecosystem. And I think these are quite similar to other countries, such as Netherlands and European countries as well. And please. This slide, last slide, shows some statistics got from Plug and Play in Japan. And they are providing accelerator program for international companies and Japanese startups as well. And 60% of their FinTech startups there were international companies. And Plug and Play is headquartered in the States, so by country, most of the companies are from the States. But we can see the good mix of other attendees from other countries, such as Singapore, and France, and UK, and Canada. So yeah, Japanese FinTech ecosystem is very open to different kinds of countries. And by category, blockchain is quite hot, still hot in Japan. And the next section is our associations. And FinTech Association of Japan was established, started our activity from 2014. It was a meetup. And 1 year later, we officially established association. And recently, we have more than 440 companies, and 1/3 of our members are startups, and 2/3 of our members are enterprise companies. And this slide shows our startup members, and we have different kinds of verticals in our association, such as payment, capital markets, and insurtech, wealth tech, yeah, etc., etc. And this shows enterprise members. And of course, we have many financial institutions and payment or banking companies. And also, we have other companies from other industries, such as telecom, or trading, or technologies and system integrators. And let me introduce our activities. First one is the committees. And we have many different types of issues in the FinTech industry. So we have 9 committees at the moment to solve each problems in the FinTech industry. And I'm in charge of capital markets and RegTech. And also we are very keen to collaborate with the government, and especially the regulator, FSA. And we host a meetup with FSA once a year. And also we are collaborating with the Ministry of Economy or Digital Agency. And also, we have signed MOU with local governments such as Tokyo, Osaka, and Fukuoka. And this one is our annual conference, which is called FinTech Japan. And last week, we hosted this FinTech Japan 2021. And this is actually domestic conference, but we are very happy to collaborate with this kind of annual conference with Foreign FinTech next year. And the last slide shows our international partners. Now we have more than 31 partners from many countries. And we are facilitating this kind of webinar and together and exchange opinions, and also facilitate the business matching with our members as well. Okay. This is all for my presentation, and you can find more information via this our website or social medias. And please feel free to contact me if you have any questions and inquiries to me. Thank you. And next session will be the introduction from Martin. So today we have a guest speaker, Mr. Martin Wessels. He is the managing director of Agen. Okay. So yeah, could you introduce your company and your presentation? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I was happy to see your presentation, and I hope there will be much more Dutch companies in that FinTech section as well. Hello everyone, my name is Maarten Wessels. I'm the Managing Director of Agen in Japan. I'm here to share a little bit about our company, but especially our route into Japan. Agen was founded in 2006, before it was called maybe FinTech, and we started as a technology company in payments. And the thing that we wanted to do is process payments that of customers wherever they pay. So that's online, offline, in store, and we would do that on our platform that we own and we have. And we are a public company. In the last year, 2020, for this year the numbers are not public yet, it was 300 billion of euros processed for our merchants. A big chance that we process your money at some point in the world with one of our merchants. We have 26 offices, Amsterdam HQ, and 2.5 years ago we came to Japan. It's now 2,000 employees globally. It's 20 in Japan, and I'll speak a bit more about that later. And what we do, we offer payment methods and different currencies to enable payments for our for the merchants, companies that we work with, and we do that as much as possible on our own technology, built in-house with our developers. On the next slide, I want to give you a short example of the type of merchants that we work with. This is a global list, but these are our partners. So if you check out with them online, in the app, or over walking to the stores, in some cases, there's a big chance that the payments are managed by Agen. So why do we exist? I mean, there's more companies that process payments. I think there's this big shift, of course, happening. Which traditionally it was far more set on how a certain payment journey or customer journey was done. And right now, or you can go back to the next slide. Right now we see a lot more change. So customers, they're in control. They decide when they want to pay, where they want to pay. They walk into a store, go back or order something online, return it into store, and over multiple countries, you won't have the same experience. So that change, keeping up with that, that's where we feel we can really help our merchants grow. So why then did we come to Japan? Yes, we are now with a team of 20 people here, and that was only 2.5 years ago. For us, what we do, we follow our merchants globally. So we're working for a lot of international merchants that are processing all over the world, and also for Japanese companies that we were working with out of Europe or out of the US or out of Singapore. And both the merchants said, if you can do whatever you do globally in Japan, it will be very interesting for us. So following our merchants got us into Japan. Of course, there are some challenges and stories around that. On the next slide, I've listed only a couple, but it's after this. Another point. This may be the better one to stop here. Thank you. Our approach to Japan, some challenges. I would say, I think this was mentioned by Maarten and Don before as well. Study about the market, learn, listen, and only then build. It took us a long time to get our product to a quality, and also our processes to feel like, oh, now we're ready to get into Japan. And even when we said we're going to do it, first we wanted to understand the market better and listen to what was going on. We started very small with building our product, and actually we went live with merchants behind the scenes without making it too public to first learn, take small steps, and after a while we got some successes. We were able to speak to other companies in the market with a good story on how we got there. The third point is that first adopt local processes as much as possible. I think especially as a Dutch company or an international company, you feel like, oh, we can start from scratch in the country, so we can do everything differently. And our approach was, okay, let's mimic what's done in the Japanese market as much as possible, Some banks still want to send us faxes. We said, okay, that's okay, and we use technology to not have a real fax machine in the office, but actually online take those faxes and actually mimic our responses as a fax with them. And after that, once we start those processes, then we are able to change and make something special. What we've done is we hired local people from the start. Diversity is key, so it's not only Japanese that fully understand the Japan market, it's also people that, for example, have lived here for a while or lived for a long time abroad. So this diversity, that keeps us adapting to the Japan market, but also understanding the rest of the world. And we see that global collaboration for us as a company really works, especially if we're serving so many global merchants. We educate, as a Japan team, the rest of the company about Japan and how business is done here, and also the rest of the company it educates us about how the business practices of our global merchants work. Also mentioned before as the last point, its success should be long term. I think if you come into Japan and you say in 1 year this is my success, and or in 2 years, that's too short. We are here for dozens of years. So the things that we need to do, we look at really at success long term. I think if you need to, for example, earn money quickly or have very short KPIs, it's far more troublesome to get a really good base in Japan. So we've been very lucky to also fortunate to choose for a very long-term approach to Japan. Those were some of the thoughts and challenges we've had in Japan. I could speak about it a lot more, but thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. So I'd like to ask you some questions.
Sure.
And first one is there any remarkable change in the past 2 years in this situation in your operation or in collaborating with Japanese companies?
There's one. We started following the merchants we already knew, whether it was Japanese companies or international companies, and that has helped us a lot because they knew how our systems worked, how we talk, how we solve problems. And since the moment you have an office here with people and some stories of companies that are very happy working with you, then you can tap into the local market. And you could never do that as a foreign company. So now we are really here. We have successes. We get seats at tables that you could not get if you would just come in the first day.
I see. And we joined the digital mission together half a year ago, and that was a digital mission. And the Japanese government is very keen to transform their own systems and also Japanese society systems. So we are on the journey of this transformation now.
We're in that every day. Everyone in FinTech is, and I think what the great thing of FinTech and also in Japan is, okay, how can we accelerate that? We would like to accelerate it a lot faster than we can, but in Japan you need to be. It's very much a nuance of. It's okay to change something, but at least you need to honor what is there today, and take that into account. You can't ignore it and say, for example, in my example, we don't want faxes, so there's just nothing to do with it. We need to acknowledge it and then move forward with change.
All right. Thank you. So time is limited. So could you say some comments to the Dutch companies who want to come to Japan or explore opportunities here? Brief comment.
I think you should come. And it was said today, the market is really big. It still is and it will be. It is a different market, so you can't do everything the same as you're used to. So it requires understanding, more analysis, more long term. But if you are happy and willing to do that, I think then success is inevitable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so let's move on to the next session. We will have a pitching session. And we start from Japanese side, and we have 3 companies today. And the first one is Cowris, and the next one is Infurion, and the last one is Manesol. And they will introduce their companies and solutions, and Cowris is a cybersecurity and electric companies. And Infurion provides banking, digital banking solutions. And Manesol is also digital banking solutions. So, are you ready now? Okay. So, yeah, starting from Cowris, Shimatsu-san from Cowris. Okay, Shimatsu-san, floor is yours.
聞こえてますか? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. So I will present our companies. So first I will explain what is the company. Cowris provides the cloud-based fraud detection service to the enterprise corporations such as the SoftBank and Mitsui Sumitomo Bank, and especially the financial corporation. And I'm a CEO at Yoshi and Shimatsu, and also I have the role of the director of FinTech Association Japan. And so our company was founded in 2015, and we provide the SaaS solution, and also we have additional solution with the collaboration with the electric companies, and for eKYC for the financial corporation. And so we founded, this company was founded in 2015, and we provide the first product named Fraudalert to in 2017, and then we got more than 30 financial corporation clients, and then we released the second product with the electric companies and database solution. And also we got the investment from the company like this, Salesforce.com, Kansai Electric, Sony, and MUFG, corporate venture capitals. And the problem we are solving is the fraud for internet banking and mobile phone banking. Japan banking got damage more than $30 million per year. And the credit card corporation got over $260 million in the e-commerce market. So huge amount of damage was so many damage exists in the Japan's internet circumstances. So when the companies introduce our solution Fraudalert in their web services or mobile phone apps, we could detect the account hijacking from. And so how the Fraudalert works is that this is a solution flows. If end user coming to the web services or home bankings, we could gather the device information here, and we can calculate the analysis based on the 150 parameters such as OS and browser version and IP addresses and keyboard setting and so on. And then clients got our company our answer results of the risk analysis, and then protect and block the login or using the second additional authentication such as short mail authentication or biometrics authentication, and then protect the fraud. And our companies how to differentiate our company's solutions compare with the competitions with sharing the blacklist data such as our company's third-party cookie and IP addresses among such industries. So for example, our companies got some incident from the account hijacking. We found out which device is the malicious one, and then we registered these devices to our company's blacklist and sharing this data to among our clients. So Cowris has found more than 1,000 money laundering bank accounts in a year, and then report to the FSA and FSA sometimes change the guideline according to the report. This is the way how to check the money laundering in internet banking and mobile phone apps. And the last slide is here, and we was selected as a J startup, the top 1% startup in Japan, and we got a certification from the regulatory sandbox, and we could utilize the Lifeline's company's database for eKYC and for when the end user want to create the bank account, and we could utilize this end user want to have a new bank account in Seven Banking or other card credit company corporations, and we can compare these data and bank account registration data to the electronic banking databases, and sometimes this information is not much, and sometimes such type of registration banking account creation is a fraud, so we could detect real time. So this is a second product for how to protect the cloud. So just to finish this last slide, this is my email address. If you have some interest for our company or services, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Shimatsu-san. Actually, there are only a few regulated companies in Japan which provides fraud detection solution, and Kairos has a very unique position in Japan. And Shimatsu-san, I have one question.
Yeah.
How do you see the international markets? I think you are very proactive to explore your opportunities in other countries.
Yes, so this time solution, the competition is almost Silicon Valley players or Israel or Russia, competition exists. So sometimes I went to some FinTech event all over the world, and then sometimes I propose my solution to some bankings. Could you want to start POC with us? The Taiwan banking want to start the POC within the 2 years, within 2 years. So we have some. I feel there are so many potential market, especially APAC and EU market, I think.
Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to the next company, Infurion. Natalie-san, are you ready?
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, so floor is yours.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Let me share my screen if that's okay. Okay, never mind. Our security settings are not allowing me to share on Zoom, so I'll just speak and so everybody, nice to meet you. My name is Natalie Shiori Fleming. I'm actually one of the founding members of the FinTech Association. I launched the meetup that turned into the association, but then retired in 2019 to let new blood come in. My background, I'm an ex-banker. I was at Citibank and Societe Generale before I did my MBA at INSEAD. And from there, most recently, I was at Payoneer, which is a cross-border B2B payments company, where I was the representative director of the Japanese entity and a senior director of the APAC region, getting the company regulated in Japan and across Asia, and then launching payment services across the region. I only recently joined Infurion. So I joined last month, but I worked with Mariyama-san, who's also on the board of the FinTech Association, quite closely for 5 years. And so it's my pleasure to be joining, instead of working on fintech startups coming into the Japanese market from abroad, working on a Japanese startup that's looking to grow globally. So as VP of Corporate Development here, one of my goals is to work out our global strategy and expand into new markets. So similar to Adyen, we were established in 2006, so pre-FinTech. And we're a B2B2C company. So what we really do is build the infrastructure to create frictionless digital payment and financial services for end users in Japan. So we actually started as a consulting firm, so working with large Japanese corporations to help them grow their fintech services or launch fintech services. And from there, we launched our own merchant solution services it's currently called Anywhere. So it's payment terminals and payment processing, which allows, so examples is that I guess the payment terminals are used in the Japan taxi apps or whatever. So like the idea is to, or for recurring payments for insurance companies, and to reduce the friction and lessen the steps in the payment process. Most recently, we launched a banking as a service platform. And this one, our core market is financial institutions and corporates. So the first solution is what we call Wallet Station, which is similar to like a Rails bank for the Japanese market. So allowing our clients to launch wallet services for their customers. And also we have a card issuance platform called XRD, which we actually acquired from a different Japanese fintech startup, which allows us to do real-time card issuance for B2B transactions. But yeah, I guess effectively we do a lot. And from a global perspective, we're one of the key players in, I guess, connecting everybody to the Japanese market. So whether from a consulting perspective or from an infrastructure perspective, if you're looking to come into the Japanese market, please feel free to reach out to me and ask me, both for casual introductions to get to know more about the Japanese landscape, and or to actually do something together.
Thank you very much. And yeah, as you mentioned, Natalie-san, you have seen a long history of the development of fintech ecosystem in Japan. And my question is, how do you see the current situation or current opportunities in the Japanese markets in terms of banking business or banking as a service business you are providing?
Yeah, so I think Japan is behind in I guess it depends on what your benchmark is, but from a lot of perspectives, we would say it's behind on the cashless perspective. There's still a lot of cash transactions in this market. Part of it is because people think that Japanese consumers prefer cash or merchants, and I don't actually think that's the case. I think it's just habitual. I actually think that Japanese consumers are the same as everybody everywhere else. They want things cheaper and easier and simpler in their lives. So I don't know that the market opportunity is that different from the rest of the market, but I think there's room for improvement on the infrastructure side, as well as just generally bringing customers onto the digital platforms. And I think Japan is unique in that I think it's 27% of the population is above 65 years old. And so you have to make service, depending on what your target market is, potentially you also have to make your service simple enough for somebody who is not a digital native to use it. So I think that's a particular challenge for the Japanese market, but also applies to a lot of other developed markets. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. And for more questions or information, please, can audience reach out to you?
Oh, sure. You can share my contact information. Sorry, I don't I'll talk to our tech team about making sure that I can share slides on Zoom going forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on to the last company, Maneso. And Natalie from Maneso will give the pitch. And Maneso is a very international company based in Singapore, Japan, and France as well. And they have presence in Japan and cooperating with Japanese financial institutions. So, are you ready?
Yes, give me just
Okay.
1 second to share my screen. And if you can see my screen, I can see a lot of screens out there.
Yes, it's a presenter mode, I think.
Okay, so
Yeah. Actually, it's a, I think, presenter mode, so we can see some notes on the screen now.
sorry. Okay, give me a second, and I'm trying to get it to presentation mode. So, sorry, the technical issues of using. Give me a second. See if I can just push it to screen share first, without the notes. Okay. Is that showing better or?
Yes. Perfect.
Perfect. Okay.
Please go ahead.
Great. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Sorry for the slight technical issues initially. I'm from Moneythor, and we're a global enterprise software company headquartered in Singapore with offices in Japan, France, and the UAE. And our Moneythor solution is a scalable, cloud-native, digital, data-driven personalization and engagement engine for digital banking. And so most of us here, if not all of us, have bank accounts. But how many of us would consider or view our banks as trusted partners in helping us to improve our finances or enrich our lives? I think most of us see them just as a place to hold our money and not much more. But it doesn't have to be that way. And banks could do so much more to engage with us on a more valuable level and increase our loyalty to them. And so digital transformation has brought us, great banking apps that make our lives so much easier. And we think it's time that they start to transform the way they actually engage with us. So this is where Moneythor comes in. We sit on top of a core banking platform app. We use data analytics and behavioral science to help transform the way that banks and financial institutions can engage with their customers. So we help them deliver recommendations, insights, nudges at scale and in real time. And this can be used to help the bank's customers kind of improve their finances with budgets, savings goals, et cetera, but it also allows the banks to easily showcase and market any appropriate products like fixed savings accounts, insurance products, et cetera. From the tech side, Moneythor can be seen as an intelligent orchestration engine, kind of sitting on the bank's core systems with our front end APIs, ensuring a seamless integration with the bank's website or their mobile app, even chatbots, and Moneythor can actually power those. While our backend API ensures that we have deep access to account data, card data, and can even power open banking functionality. So this deep access even allows us to provision new accounts through Moneythor on the bank system. But the Moneythor Studio is really where the magic of our engine happens. It allows the bank's teams, even non-technical team members, to easily roll out new personalization functionality by segmenting, the customers by age, income, spending styles, any data point really. And it's that segmentation and that deep transaction understanding that really allows us to power those contextual nudges and recommendations that are the foundation of, personal finance management capabilities, which is a key trend in the market. There are probably hundreds of PFM solutions out there, but instead of being just basically a Tableau or reporting tool for banking, we deliver what I call smart digital banking. We make sense out of these transactions, providing the customer with insights on their spending patterns. We can pull those patterns and identify it and group like transactions out of past spending habits to provide predictive alerts. In this screenshot, you can see in the upper right-hand corner, we've identified that this customer, given their past spending patterns, is likely to get out of money this month. We can also provide personalized insights driven by sort of key changes in spending patterns. And of course, as a benefit, not only to the customers, but also to the banks, we can serve up promotions and offers that are based on the customer's spending patterns and contextualize them to maximize those conversions. Here's a nice screenshot of one of our marquee customers, Standard Chartered Bank. Budgeting is a core aspect that a lot of our clients use MoneyThor for. It allows us to help our customers set up budgets that they can track, so helps with their personal finance management. And I mentioned before the contextualized nudges and recommendations. And I believe the key to the power of MoneyThor is that we can actually deliver these real time in the transaction feed of the customer, increasing the value not only for the customer, but also for the banks. So for example, in this middle shot, you can see that the customer, we can serve up a nudge after the customers just had lunch at the kebabs factory and let them know that they've reached their dining budget for the month. On the far right, we've identified that someone's actually gone to Lululemon Athletica, bought some clothes there, and we serve up a promotion for a similar store where they can also purchase athletic wear. So banks like Standard Chartered Bank have seen a 7 times increase in conversions using these MoneyThor-driven in-feed contextualized offers. Savings goals are also clearly sort of a big play in the personal finance management space. And for all of us who've struggled to save up for a big expense, MoneyThor can help you with that too. Here, ANZ Bank of Australia uses MoneyThor to help their customers save up and track their savings progress for a vacation. In this case, we've actually used MoneyThor to provision a separate account for the ANZ user just for this holiday, but we can also create virtual accounts where the totals are held in MoneyThor. Gamification is, I think, a big theme across the tech industry right now, and no less so in the banking space. CIMB, another one of our big clients, is using MoneyThor to create challenges for their customers that when they complete a particular offer, the customer is given, in this case, a little interactive spin wheel where they can win prizes to celebrate. Additionally, referral functionality has been a big boon for some of our clients to use to increase both their customer engagement and loyalty. So in terms of kind of the benefits that MoneyThor can bring, all of this functionality brings great results for our clients. 30 to 50% improvement on click-through rates, better than 80% customer satisfaction levels. I mentioned before the 7 times conversion rate for promotions that have been served up. And even we can help drive home the value of the nudges and in-feed contextualized recommendations with a 22% decrease in support calls because we're able to serve up those little nuggets of information real time to the customers. So to wrap it up, banks can quickly get up and running on the MoneyThor solution, can personalize their interactions, easily have their team build out new campaigns as they evolve, as their needs evolve, and all done in a platform that ensures that they can provide a bespoke and on-brand experience. And so you could say that transforming the ways that banks engage and serve their customers, has never been easier than when they use MoneyThor. So thank you. That's the end. I'll just go back. If people would like to learn more about us, they can reach out at info@moneythor.com or go to our website.
We have one question from the floor.
Absolutely.
A quick question, please. How do you differentiate yourself from various companies working in the same niche or financial management?
As I said, there.
USPs?
Sorry, as I mentioned early on, there are hundreds of companies that offer up personal finance management solutions, but really most of them sit as a reporting tool, almost like a Tableau-esque tool on top of the data. Whereas MoneyThor goes deep into the data offered by the banks so that we can take information from all the accounts and understand the connection of those accounts, categorize them, segment them by the user base, and provide in transaction feed contextual nudges on the things. So we can do all the personal financial management in addition to that, but I think the some of the core value of Moneythor is the ability to serve up these nuggets of nudges and recommendations in feed real time based on the patterns that we see on the underlying data provided by the banks.
Okay. Thank you very much. And this is all for pitching from Japan side. And I'd like to hand over to the Dutch side. We have two companies from that side. So, Don, over to you. You're on mute.
Yes, the studio has the controls here, so I can't unmute myself. But thank you very much indeed. It was really interesting to hear about the company. So thanks for sharing. Really insightful presentations and cool companies to check out what they're doing. I think very relatively similar to a lot of the companies and technologies that are being worked on also here in a European context. But we've actually got some quite different companies for you to look into. So I'm very proud to present to you Sjoerd Leemhuis from Olin, who can tell you a little bit more about their data solution, especially aimed at capital markets. Sjoerd, can you share your slides?
Yes.
Maybe we should first unmute him. Yeah, okay.
I'm unmuted, so thanks studio for unmuting me. My name is Sjoerd Leemhuis. I'm the founder and CEO of Olin. I have some slides, so let me share my my slides here with everyone. Olin, we look at news all over the world in different languages, and then we automatically, with algorithms, we identify risk, opportunities, and trends. We already do that for a few years. So we are, in essence, a natural language processing platform. So we have a pipeline that analyzes text and news. We are based in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. We have also an office in New York at this moment, and we are expanding. And I think our client base, you will find them all over the world. I think more than 75% of our revenue comes from overseas. So how are we used in practice, right? So we are focused on news analytics. We have, for instance, a partnership with Fitch Ratings, and Fitch is of course known for giving ratings on different companies in the whole world. But the problem is with ratings is that as soon as the rating is out, it's already old information, and ratings are also often based on annual reports, which could be also from the year before. So we help to make those ratings more real time by adding news and sentiment scores on top of that rating. So it's not a replacement of the rating, but it gives you additional context to know, is this company still as viable as they used to be at the moment they were rated. So it's faster, it's more real time, it gives you more context. We also earlier saw a beautiful presentation of Maarten about how he's expanding Adyen in Japan. Adyen, but also other payments companies, they actually use us, our technology, to track merchants on a global level, because also the merchants themselves, but also the payment service providers, they would like to know if there are no data breaches. They would like to know if there are no signs that merchants might be in trouble, because then Adyen might come and help and offer something to the merchants. And we're also used by private equity funds globally to track their watch list and their portfolio. Because what we do, what makes our platform really unique, is that we look at non-listed entities in a lot of different foreign languages. So let me explain a little bit more how that works. In this world, there's a lot of information, and in a single day, millions of articles are being published. As a human being, it's impossible to go through them all and read them all. So we have algorithms that help you out there. Our platform looks at millions of articles a day in many different languages. At this moment, we support 12 languages. Japanese is one of the languages we're going to deploy in the next quarter. So we are continuously expanding also the languages. We bring that together on our platform where we apply algorithms, and this is what you would call natural language processing, to identify what companies are mentioned here. And what is this about? Is this about a board change? Is this about maybe some ESG risk? Or is this maybe about some anti-money laundering risk? And then we visualize in a dashboard your complete portfolio, and you can rank and sort it on any given risk, on ESG risk, on AML risk, on data breaches, cyber risk, and so on. These insights are either delivered via API or via a dashboard. This is another way of looking at the platform. We also, news is one of the data sets, but we also started working with structured data. So other types of ratings that we integrate, reviews of websites that we integrate, and we all bring that together on our analytics platform, which financial institutions are integrating. So in that respect, we're not really a fintech challenger, so we're not challenging any of the old financial institutions, but we see ourselves really as a fintech enabler, making sure that in a faster moving world, we help fintechs succeed. So the new, the neobanks, the payments companies, but also the old traditional banks that are looking for faster and better ways to be on top of their portfolio. There are quite some use cases. So, but I think the ones that are biggest is ESG risk for supply chains and for investment portfolios. And supply chain risk, the whole world there is also referred to as third-party risk management. This is what we see not only within financial institutions, but also corporates globally. So we also have, for instance, a partnership with KPMG in different countries, where we also help them track their clients and also even power applications that they sell again to their clients that are all about supply chain risk. So how does it look in practice? People log in a web-based environment, or they use our API. I can give you some screenshots of our web-based environment. We visualize your portfolio where there are emerging events. And it's really simple, very intuitive. So the bigger the bubble means action is happening there. Something is going on with the bubble. This means that a single user can track thousands of companies and only has to click on the biggest bubbles because that's where something is happening at this moment. So we drill down research that might have taken otherwise days into just a single click. And if you want to go deeper, we allow for filtering out the noise, where you can look at, hey, are there any ESG signals? Are there any KYC signals over the timeline? So even for the onboarding of a client or a merchant, you can get a snapshot out of our dashboards that will tell you whether there are any negative events that happened in the past. And what you can do as well is browse the whole world and enter any trend, any company name in our dashboard, and by using knowledge graph technology, by also using automatic trend detection, we help you by visualizing what's going on in the world to help you be better on top of the portfolio. So it's our mission to shape a better informed world. And today I have hoped to shape a better informed Japan for just a little bit. And thanks for being here, everyone.
Thanks, Sjoerd. Thanks for sharing, and indeed, great presentation. I think we already got one question in the chat I'd like to ask you, and that's from Jet. He's curious about whether there's any bias in the data and how you deal with that.
Yeah. So what's important is that you look at sources that you trust, and one of the things that we see in the world is that a few years ago we had big issues with fake news because everyone can start a news website and can integrate a share on Twitter or share on Facebook button. And as soon as you have that on your website, it's all open for everyone to use. Your news starts to live on the other platforms as well. We don't work like that. we have a closed system where we already we control the sources that we follow, so people cannot add themselves into Outlin. That's already one way of getting bias out of the news. Secondly, we provide full transparency. So we cluster articles that are about the same topic. So we can tell you not only the trends, but we can also tell you with just a few clicks which sources were reporting about this when. In the end, there's always users and people looking at the insights, and they can then make the judgment call how they would like to react on these insights that are happening online.
Yeah. Okay, so indeed, I think that, and so in the end, you actually have also some kind of rating for the news sources, where is there some kind of trustworthiness or sentiment score also for news sources?
Well, because we look at a lot of non-listed companies in foreign languages, we do not rate the news sources ourselves, but we can tell you whether it's just one source reporting on this or whether it's a lot of sources reporting on this. And we can also tell you which sources they are. We do allow, if our clients would like to rate sources, we do support it, but the default setting of our system is we actually recommend against it, because you also want to know what's happening in the local news outlets globally.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks a lot, Sjoerd, and great also to hear that you're integrating Japanese in there as well. So I think I hope that there's an enthusiastic audience for that also on this call. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Then it's time for Ariane Braam-Verkoren, who is going to tell us a bit about InsurTech in the Netherlands, where we talk about FRIS. Ariane, great to have you here.
Thank you.
Can you share, you have a slide as well, I believe. Can you share it?
I will share. Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yes, you're all good. Take it away.
Well, thanks a lot. And thank you for inviting me here. I already learned a lot today. So, I hope to be connected to all the people who presented before me. So today I want to bring you a little bit of the experience we have and the solution we bring to the world. So FRIS's company started 15 years ago in the Netherlands. We are still wearing all these orange shirts all over the world because we still think that that's a nice takeaway from being a Dutch company and being headquartered in the Netherlands, but already a global player in the area of fraud, risk, and compliance. So we believe that insurance is a beautiful thing. It actually empowers us to do anything we want, to buy a house, to set up a company, to fly all over the world, or to skydive, anything you want. So we should be very careful with insurance. It is a given to us all. And as we know that there is a lot of fraud where money flows, there's a lot of fraud in the world, as well as in the insurance industry. So on average, there is about 10% of fraud in insurance claims, for example, which is a lot of money and which is actually not fair to the insured people. So we believe that we should offer fair and honest business. And let's see if I can go to my next slide. Don't have the control. Oh, yes. So that's what we have been doing for 15 years now. We now have more than 200 implementations worldwide, and we are really proud that we are saving more than $1 billion every year, and that's growing and growing every year. So of course, this is a very important part to make sure that the insurance is more honest and people get fair premiums. But also we support the digitalization of the insurance market. Now everything is, especially last year, that gets in a big flow of digitalization, and then especially then you need to look at the behavior of people and also the bad behavior of some people in the world. So my background is in psychology, in criminology, and I've always been working to drive people to do the good thing, to make the good decisions and not make decisions which are actually abuse of certain rules and regulations. And that's why I've been working now for a long time at FRIS to make the world a little bit more honest. At this moment, we're setting up our business in Australia for the Asia Pacific region. So as you can see on this slide, there is an orange flag where we just landed. We just opened our office in Australia and make sure that we expand to the Asia Pacific region. So that's why I'm really happy to also learn today on the Japanese market and how we could start talking to the Japanese insurance companies. So the core of our solutions is the FRIS core. The FRIS core is giving our clients, giving the insurance companies a trusted standard to make decisions on. The score is based on an AI driven methodology, and we believe that AI is a beautiful thing. You can do a lot with AI, but you always need to combine AI as well with a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge on insurance fraud and insurance fraud patterns we already learned from in the entire world. As you know, people are behaving everywhere. People are behaving the same in essence, but there are always local specialties in every region. But you can learn from each other, and you can learn from the fraud patterns we detect in other countries as well. And that's what we bring to all our clients. We make sure that they learn from what we learn, and make sure that you are upfront of the fraudsters and not too late to detect them. So the FRIS core gives you a trusted base to make a decision on, and the main thing to do that is to have an automatic flow, to have your straight-through processing to make sure that the good clients, the good insured people, get a better treatment and get serviced very quickly, paid out immediately, accepted immediately, etc. So they are actually more happy customers. This is the main thing we do. And to do that, you need to know that if there is a higher risk, you need to have a different routing for that, block processes, investigation processes, etc. So we make sure that our clients can sleep at night and run their business 24/7 in a fully automated way, and trust the scoring to act when it's necessary. So that's why we have set our goal for 2025 to have the global standard trusted scoring for honest insurance. And the nice thing is we always have a saying in the company that in 2025 we will have a big celebration in Tokyo to celebrate that we reached our goal. It's not the 100 years goals as I heard earlier, but we have some 5-year goals as well, and we try to make the long term, but also make it short term. So in 2025, at the latest, I will be in Tokyo together with you, and I hope soon we can have some more meetings and see how we can work together. I also was interested in the fraud solution on the banking side, and so maybe that could also be a nice connection together. So if you would like to have more information, please reach out to me, or go to our site, fris.com, and we can talk further. Thank you. Don, you're muted.
Yes, there I am again. Sorry, I just had to wait for the studio. Well, thank you very much, Ariane, and great job. Congratulations on your landing in Australia, and really nice to hear that you're on this roadmap towards Japan, which I think is, of course, especially in this context, I think really favorable. how did Japan become basically your end destination or sort of your end goal for FIS to end up with?
Yeah, so that it was a bit of a saying, let's say, a sort of to make the goal more tangible, also for all the employees working at FIS, to make it sort of something to dream for. And so that's a bit of the reason. It actually came from a song on my way to Tokyo. And then this started to get alive and to get real. So, but on the sideline of that, so that's more on the funny side of it. But on the sideline of that, we are really interested to see how we can work together. And I was also happy to hear the learnings from Ajahn that would really help us as well to learn from that how we would first make sure to settle down in Japan and then start doing business there.
Great. Yeah, I think indeed it's really, really wonderful that we can basically share these experiences among each other to basically go from one place to another and share experiences on how cultural differences, business practices, or regulations, for example, actually might turn out to be different than we expect them to be. So that's really useful, and I hope in that sense that's helpful. And maybe that's also a good call out to everyone else to that wants to share experiences or want to learn, so we can help make the connection there. Yeah, thank you very much, Ariana. I think it's a great story, and indeed also I also saw already quite some collaboration potential between you and some of the other companies that we were talking about. So let's make that connection work.
Look forward to it.
Hopefully that's really fruitful. So thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Then I'd just like to wrap up with a few final words before I hand it back to the three people, the three men in the studio, to maybe say a final thing as well. Here from the Dutch side, it was really great to learn about the development in the Japanese market, learn about some of the cool companies that are active there, and hope to have contributed a little bit to an insight in what's going on in the Dutch market. And in any case, I believe that, you know, as long as we keep the conversation going, we'll get better at understanding each other, and I think business potential will rise. I'm pretty sure about that. So thanks for setting this up together, and that's it from my end. So I'd like to say goodbye already, and then over to the studio in Japan.
Thank you, Don. Yeah, I believe this is quite a good start for our collaboration, and yeah, hope to continue this kind of collaboration, and of course we can see each other in person soon. And comments from John Mike and Martin, please.
Yeah, for me it was I think it was a great event, first event after signing the MOU. So yeah. I think this definitely is a good start for the future, and yeah, let's further strengthen the cooperation, and hopefully also what you said, maybe a physical visit somewhere next year. We will see.
Looking forward to that as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you for organizing in Holland and here. It's very well done. So thank you on behalf of everyone.
Thank you everyone for contributing and sharing, and looking forward to keep you all connected, and see you next time.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye.
Computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.